I would like to probably underline your new title that you laughed at, Mother Theresa of Afghanistan. It's also known as the capital of opium of the world, with more than 90% of the world's opium supply that comes from farms in Afghanistan.
Here we go, Lillian. I'm going to give you the aphrodisiac story first.
That bread, that aromatic bread.
I started the Afghan Widows Empowerment Program in 2023.
Hello, my dear friends, followers, and colleagues. I'm Lillian Zeltzer, and for over 3 decades, I researched, practiced, and hunted around the world for aphrodisiacs and natural stimulants. In the process, I met many fascinating people who share my love to knowledge and experience, and who share that with those who want to use it, because, as Albert Einstein said, the most reliable source of knowledge is experience. Today's guest has a story to tell, a story about her life filled with adventure, bitterness and honey, regrets and triumph, pain and pleasure. Our guest today is a girl from Brooklyn who once upon a time embraced Afghan culture, which took her through wars and political twists, hunger, dangers, luscious experiences, and thorns of bitter reality. She is an author of a memoir called From Brooklyn to Kabul, and 4 other best-selling books. And she is a founder of the Afghan Women's Empowerment Program. Please welcome Kat Parenti.
Thank you, Lillian. Wonderful to see you. Okay, here's where I have to start.
Kat,
No, Lillian, an aphrodisiac. So here we go, Lillian. I'm going to give you the aphrodisiac story first.
Well, actually, Afghan culture is filled with aphrodisiacs. I've been to Afghanistan, and starting from amazing spices and finishing with some psychedelics. People do use it, and natural stimulants exist and they work. And I'm pretty sure in your journey, you met a lot of people who confirmed it, or maybe gave you something that you could try, or maybe that was the reason why you fell in love with Afghanistan. Well, we'll have to discuss that today. Well, but in the first place, I would like to find out what triggered your initial interest to Afghanistan. And did you ever wish that it never happened?
No. This was my life path and life mission that I was given at age 3 through visions and dreams. I saw a faraway country. I was standing there, and I saw the villages, the ochre gold villages against the purplish brown mountains and the periwinkle blue skies. And this is what I saw in my mind's eye. I was a young girl of 14 in the vision. I had on this incredible dress. Everything was on it, all kinds of coins and jewelry and embroidery. And I was stirring a pot over the fire with a carved wooden spoon. And that's what went on in my mind. Now, I had no idea as a child this was Afghanistan. Then, but I always wanted to go there, Lillian. I never told anybody, but inside I kept going. I'm going to Afghanistan. I'm going to Afghanistan. Age 13, I started to have a recurring dream. It was about a very tall man with kind of dark gold skin. The features were not clear. And I saw him. I knew he was my husband. I knew we were married to each other. And I knew his country was at war, and I was helping him. That's what started the journey.
That sends well, goosebumps on my skin. It's like it meant to be. It's like there is something from above that actually defined your destiny. But still, you graduated from university, and being an educated Western woman with an open mind towards women's sexuality. What part of Afghani culture did you find the most difficult to accept? Those stories about virgins, hijabs, the recognition of women's sexuality, that it exists, education, rights to be educated, arranged marriages, and etc. Is it so horrible, or it's part of life? It's tradition that you embraced, and it was quite good.
It was a tradition I embraced. It was quite good. And remember, Lillian, I say this in all respect. You are viewing this culture with a Western mind, honey. And if you view any culture with a Western mind, anybody, me, you, him, her, we don't see who these people really are. I lived with them. I ate with them. I laughed with them, joked with them, cooked with them, cried with them, loved with them. And I always lived with families, so I could see them firsthand. I didn't read a book. I didn't say, oh, Dr. So-and-so wrote a book on Afghanistan, and this is the way it must be. No, everything I have written, all 5 books, have been through my personal experience in that culture. So the thing that I find, well, we don't even have to go there. Perfect. That is the answer. I embraced it. I started thinking like they think. Just to be clear, now I'm talking a long time ago, folks. This is not something that happened yesterday morning. According to the true heart of the Muslim culture of Afghanistan, the most sacred thing besides God is the face of the wife who gives birth to the children. The face is so revered that they started using veils when the women go out of the house to protect their faces from any derogatory thoughts, words, or deeds by men in the street. The chadri was never worn by the nobility, never worn by the merchant class unless they were in the public street, but when they got to their destination, that's the end of it. Never worn by the farmers except when they came to the cities, and never worn by the nomads. And it was a cultural thing. If your father's wife, your dad, your mom, if your mom wore the chadri, most likely you are going to wear the chadri. But it wasn't this what the Taliban have developed out of this horror, this nightmare, this you've got to be veiled at all times, and you can only see your eyes, and whoops, they saw your hands, that's it, chop your fingers off. No, it was not like that. I could never live in a culture like that. These people were the most compassionate, merciful, beautiful individuals toward themselves and toward others. And yes, I am not saying that things that you have heard never existed in Afghanistan. A woman asked me a question one time when I was talking publicly. She said, tell me, do the Afghans beat their wives and abuse them? And I said, oh, yes. Before I answer that, do we have women's shelters here in America because men abuse their wives?
Absolutely.
We are all the same world over.
Yet, no matter where you are on this planet, you are made of the same stuff. You have the same needs, and you share the same happiness. Uh, well, Afghani people are similar to us. Yes, they have perhaps different traditions and cultures that is related to the history, to the way how they um, lived, their surroundings, and so on. But they are the same people as you and me, the same needs. Here in Australia, we have a lot of people from Afghanistan who came during wars. They are integrated into society. They are exactly the same. They go to universities. They are successful business people, and they are not different to anyone else around here. But let's not talk about politics. Let's talk about beautiful Afghan traditions. What would be the most pleasant memories of time that you spent in Afghanistan there? Music with tambor, that instrument, or use of natural resources, or let's talk about their beautiful matriarchal culture, healthy cooking, savory dishes that basically send you to cloud nine.
Yes,
About pleasant things.
exactly. Okay, which one do you want me to tackle?
Oh, let's go for food. Everyone
Of
eats.
course, I knew you were going to say that. Okay. The food of Afghanistan is phenomenal. I'll say that. And the closer you get to the Pakistani border, the more phenomenal it gets, in my humble opinion, because I like seasoned food. I'm not talking hot, burn your mouth. I'm talking seasoned food. Okay. And okay, I'll describe to you one of the parties, one of the many, many, many parties that I was invited to by the Afghan people. And I was with all layers of the society. I didn't go just with the top or the middle it was everybody. Okay, so here was a party. One of my friends was the chief composer of Afghanistan, and he'd give these lavish parties, and the room was like 150 people. And their tradition is you have to greet each person individually. So go around the room and greet everybody.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Chatoristin, khobastin, chialdarin. So yes, absolutely. You went around the room and you did the whole thing. Now, here's the food. We'll just talk about food. The first thing they brought out was charcoal or choriko, which means chor is for, ko is mountain, the four mountains. And this would be a woven basket about that big. And each part of the basket made all together a mountain, the four mountains, and converged at the top. What was it? It was black grapes. It was long green grapes that they called the bride's little finger. And it was almonds and walnuts. And to them, this epitomized their culture, the people of the culture and the culture itself. And that was the first thing. These were these mountains that you could sit there and just nibble away. Now, at the time that I lived there, before all the problems in the wars, hashish was part of the culture. No, it wasn't people getting stoned and getting by and falling on their face and all that silliness and nonsense. It was a part of the culture, like the Americans would have the 5 o'clock martini when they got home. So alcohol was prohibited in Islam. Actually, it wasn't prohibited. It was said to drink in moderation, but people went prohibited. Okay, fine. So you could smoke hashish. You could drink some wine if you wanted. Then, after about an hour or so, out came the kebabs. The kebabs were about as big as the nail on my thumb, which is not very big. Each person would get 10 skewers. So you'd have meat, fat, meat, fat, meat. And I asked one of the Afghans that I was sitting at this party, and I said, "What is the meaning of the fat?" He said, "The meat and the fat shows that their animals are well cared for, and this is honor to the guest." If that wasn't enough, then the hostess came out and said, "The food is ready." And you're like, "What?" "I'm stuffed to the gills. I can't eat anymore." And you go into a room that there was nothing but a humongous table. And you had every kind of kebab, chalao, palau, vegetable dishes, lamb dishes, chicken dishes, beef dishes. I mean, just phenomenal tasting things. The best, of course, is their national dish of Afghanistan, which is called Kabuli palau. It's lamb buried in rice with carrots, raisins, and seasonings. Nothing hot, seasonings. And that was the queen of the table, and all the dishes did obeisance to her.
There is one thing that I remember from my trip to Afghanistan, that bread, that aromatic bread encrusted
Which
with
one?
black nigella seeds that produce this
Uh-huh.
smoky aroma and potent aphrodisiac effect.
Yeah, those primarily were produced by the Hazara people. And they used to sell that along the lines where you take the bus to go from city to city, because that was the only means of transportation at the time. And yes, the buttery bread with nigella seeds. Beautiful, fabulous. Well, you know what they brought, Lillian? You know what they brought for the kebabs? They brought lawasha. I thought when the servants were coming by, I thought that these people had huge pieces of cloth over their arms. It was one humongous bread. And they would take pieces off, put it in front of you, and take the kebabs off the skewer right onto the bread.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, well, drug, which is what it's called again? That
Rugs?
green nasvoy.
Oh, Niswar.
Okay, I did try it, and it was mild, sort of psychedelic thing that gave me happiness. It's a simple but effective way to elevate mood of someone. It's it can be called just like you said, martini, that open conversation style of thing. But a part of fine fruits, nuts, especially pomegranates, grapes, and extra sweet jumbo-sized melons.
Yes.
It's also known as the capital of opium of the world, with more than 90% of the world's opium supply that comes from farms in Afghanistan. Is it because people need to survive somehow? That's why they produce opium, because it's easy to sell, or there is cultural background to it, cultural lining to it?
Both. Number one, opium was, again, we're talking way back there. Opium was only used by old men who have lost their businesses, their finances, so they would become opium addicts because there was nothing for them to do. Okay. However, when the Taliban came in a couple of times there, they figured the way to control the population is to remove all crops from being grown and just the opium, because that would bring the most money. from the foreign markets. So that's how it became the opium capital of the world.
Oh, well, on that note, I can say that because of opium and opium wars and money that supplied, the money that bought guns and bullets, well, the wars torn a lot of lives in pieces, including children and women who suffer in Afghanistan even now. And I don't know if I will be naughty to say that I would like to christen you as Maria Theresa of Afghanistan, because what you're doing is very noble. Um, well, putting together a program that supports Afghan leaders and making them feel important and able to sustain their families on their own with their skills of making carpets, embroidery, pottery, jewelry, beautiful handmade turbans, and other items. Can you please elaborate a little bit about what you do there and how other people, us, can help you with that?
Sure. I started the Afghan Widows Empowerment Program in 2023 because there was so many widows on the streets, and I'm talking people 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 years old. The reason for that is because of 40 years of conflict, as you have said, there were no brother-in-laws to marry when the husband died, which was the culture, or the woman's own brother could come and say, you come and live with me and I'll take care of you. So the brother-in-laws are dead, the husbands are dead, the brothers are dead. So these women have no recourse and they're living on the streets with their kids. If they get a piece of bread, okay. If they don't, okay. They've been living on bread and tea, and that's it. If they get it through begging. Now, I know how the Taliban are with women. We don't have to belabor that one. So I figured out a way to be able to help these women without butting heads with the Taliban. These women for thousands of years have been doing the same thing. They're in their home. They're doing their embroideries. Ta-da! Look at this. You can't tell one side from the other. It's double-sided. They're doing their embroideries in their homes. They're not in the streets. I'm supplying the supplies, the needles, the threads, the cloth, the this, the that, that's purchased from the local market. These women congregate together. They collect their stuff, have a cup of tea, and then go to their own homes and create these things. My goal is to be able to support as many of them as I can. Right now, there's only 20, but that's 20 less on the street, of course. And I, excuse me, I also want to open up this program to physically disabled women, because they could do the same thing. And those two groups are the most marginalized of the women. Don't know if you know this, but in Afghan culture, a widow who didn't marry the brother-in-law, doesn't have the brother, she's almost considered on the level of a prostitute and a, quote, danger to the community. So the widows and the disabled are the most marginalized, and these are the women I want to help. How can anybody help me? I need many more speaking engagements, my dear friends. And you want to donate, that's fine. If you want to purchase, that's fine. Lillian can give you my email address at the end. Contact me and we'll see how we can manage.
Absolutely. Your details will be displayed under this video as well as on our website. Kat, once more, I would like to probably underline your new title that you laughed at, Mother Theresa of Afghanistan. Maybe it will stick, and from now on, that's what I'll be calling you. But one more question. We didn't have much time left. Before I go, if you had a chance to live your life again, would you choose the same path?
Absolutely. Minus the Soviets, of course. Minus the Taliban. I would change the picture, my dear.
Well, despite the fact that you suffered a lot, as I know about your life a little bit more than what you shared today with us, going through mountains, being pregnant, and a lot of other stuff, losing husband to war and marrying his brother, a lot of things. I really suggest people to buy your book and open their mind to other people's culture, to what life can be if you would be lucky enough or be born in Afghanistan. Yes, beautiful, absolutely gorgeous book. And the cover, I love the colors of
yes.
the minarets of the blue color. And well, every culture has something beautiful to offer. But on this note, Kat, I would like to thank you. I don't know how to say it in Farsi. Thank you, Monsieur. Hashakor. Hashakor to you, Kat. On behalf of our viewers and myself, I would like to wish you strong health, long life, and thank you for sharing your knowledge and your story with us. Wishing you once more strong health and lots of happiness.
Thank you so much. I wish it back to you 1,000 times, as the Afghans say.
A beautiful saying. What a beautiful culture. You make me feel like I want to go there again now.
Oh, I wish we could.
Thank you, Kat. Thanks. All the best.
You too.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you won't miss any of the new episodes. If you have questions, comments, or suggestions, please put them below the video. I do read them. If you are looking for a good, reliable source of specific ingredients, experts, services, or products, click on the resources link under this video. To health, long life, and pleasures.